Hi, my name is Suzanne Dagger, and I work at the Hofstra University Career Center here in Hempstead, New York. Today we're going to cover interviewing skills. And the first thing we're going to talk about when interviewing is research. One of the first things you need to do is research yourself, know your skills, know your strengths. What can you offer this employer? Additionally, when preparing for an interview, try and know exactly what you put on your resume and have stories to tell about the things you listed on your resume. Examples are the key to interviewing success. It's proof that you actually have done something. It's also a way of making sure that the employer remembers you at the end of the day. As part of your research, you also need to know about the position and the organization you're interviewing with. If you go on an interview and you don't know why you're there or who you're there with, the employer will definitely pick up on it. So it's essential that you do your research. First and foremost, go on the company website and learn everything you can about that organization. Do a Google search. Additionally, there's online resources like the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Additionally, at the Career Center, we also have many resources from organizations. They send us things, and we also have resources like the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, where you can learn all about the different jobs out there. So now let's move on, and let's find out a little bit more about what types of interviews you might actually go on. The first interview, and most typical, is called a screening interview. This is usually with someone from human resources or potentially with a supervisor, but they're really trying to compare you to the rest of the applicants out there. They'll be looking for leadership skills, communication skills, your intellect, and your interpersonal skills. Once you get past a screening interview, you are now in the selection phase. The selection phase can last for 1 or 2 more, or maybe even 3 more interviews, depending on the level of the position and the type of organization. This might be one-on-one, you with a potential supervisor, or it might be you with a committee of people, even maybe with some potential coworkers. Many of the questions you'll be asked will be the same that you faced on the screening interview, but this time around, they're really going to be seeing if you would be a good fit, if they could work with you on a daily basis. You may also find yourself in a meal situation. They might take you out to lunch. There might be a cocktail party. And this is a wonderful way for them to get a feel for your social skills. So even if you like being a wallflower, this is the time to get out there and shake people's hands and start networking. Okay, so now let's move on to the types of questions to expect. The most common questions are resume-based questions or direct questions. For instance, tell me about your internship. Did you like it? There's also another type of questioning called behavioral. And the employer is really trying to get a sense of how did you behave in the past, because that will determine how you behave in the future. One type of question, behavioral type question, would be, tell me about a time when you worked in a group project where something didn't go the right way. What did you do? And in a couple of minutes, we'll talk about how you might answer that type of question. Other types of interviewing questions or types of interviews would be a sales interview. If you're going into sales, sometimes they'll say, sell me this pen. Other types of interviews are telephone interviews where they'll catch you by surprise and call you up on the phone and do a mini interview over the telephone. And the third type of interview that really doesn't happen that often, but you should know about, is called a stress interview. And on a stress interview, the interviewer might not smile, or they might act very stoic. And really what they're trying to do is get a sense of how you deal with stressful situations. At the interview, it's also important to be prepared. Beyond your research and beyond preparing for the types of questions, you want to interview them. You want to have questions to ask them, ask the employer. You may, before the interview, come up with 10 sample questions that you'd want to ask them, but don't expect to ask all 10. You may only get to ask 2 or 3. And be creative with the questions. Only ask questions that you really want to know the answer. And these questions really should be based upon your research prior to the interview itself. And one question you can always ask at an interview is, what is the next step? When can I expect to hear from you? You never want to leave an interview not knowing when you'll hear from them. Things to bring on your interview. It's always smart to bring some extra resumes. It's always nice to hand people real copies of your resume, especially if you had applied online. Bring also a list of references, people they can call to get a better sense of who you are. And then finally, if they had asked for anything like a transcript, this is important to bring with you on an interview. Don't bring a cell phone, don't chew gum, and don't bring food on an interview. You want to make the best impression you can. Okay, dressing the part. What should you wear? We recommend on an interview, you should always be wearing a business suit. Even if you're not going to be wearing a suit on a daily basis, it's good to make a good impression. Colors like navy, gray, or black. If you're a woman, wearing classic heels, nothing too high. It should be conservative in nature, the suit. Your makeup, if you're a woman, should be conservative, as well as jewelry. And male or female, cover any visible tattoos or extra piercings. You want to make a good impression. And then after the interview, you want to send a thank you letter. Thank you letters are sent 24 to 48 hours after an interview. It can be sent through the mail or through email. Email's quicker, and usually people can check their email from the road. It should be addressed to the person or persons who interviewed you, and it should include brief points to remind them about what you spoke about at the interview, to really jog their memory. And if there was something that you forgot to mention on the interview, it's important to mention it in the thank you letter at that time. So let's go back to the types of questions. With behavioral questions, the one example I gave you earlier was, tell me about a time that you worked in a group situation where something didn't go your way. And one trick, just to let you know, in order to answer those types of questions is called the STAR method. You want to walk the interviewer through the STAR method, which is describe the situation at hand. So whether you're using an example from school or from a club or from an actual work experience, describe the situation, describe the problem. Then talk about the actual task. What was the challenge that you were facing? What was the task at hand? Then what action you took. It's important to mention what the group did, but this is about you. So what action did you take? And then the end result. What was the success? Where did it go? Always important to not leave things open. Let the employer know what the result was. So that's just a little helpful hint to help you with behavioral type questions. I want to thank you for your time. If you have additional needs, you can always stop by the Career Center for an appointment or our quick question hours. Additionally, for interviewing, we do something called mock interviews, and you can call the Career Center to make an appointment to do a mock interview. We also have interviewing resources at our building, and I want to thank you for your time.